Happy New Year, dear students, and welcome once again into the class of number theory. So today in this video on the eve of New Year 2021, we are going to start the new chapter of number theory, that is quadratic residues. Quadratic residues. So before moving ahead, you should know what is a quadratic residue. If m is a positive integer and a is any integer, then and GCD of a and m is 1, then a is said to be a quadratic residue modulo m if x square is congruent to a modulo m. If this equation has a solution, then we say that a is a quadratic residue modulo m. The two conditions are necessary, that m should be positive integer, a is an integer, and GCD of a and m is 1. This is a must. So let us see some examples. Suppose I want to check whether 2 is a quadratic residue modulo 11 or not. So I want to check, is 2 a quadratic residue? For quadratic residue, in future we will use this symbol, QR, quadratic residue. So is 2 a quadratic residue modulo 11? Is 3 a quadratic residue modulo 11? Let us see if these are both quadratic residues modulo 11, or both are not, or one is or one is not. So let us see what happens. I'll check it one by one. So let me check first this 2. So consider this quadratic congruence, x square is congruent to 2 modulo 11. If it has a solution, then we will say that this 2 is a quadratic residue modulo 11. Otherwise, we will say that 2 is a quadratic non-residue modulo 11. And if it is a quadratic non-residue, then we will write QNR, quadratic non-residue. So let us see whether this equation has a solution or not. You are just to check the solution from the complete residue system modulo 11. First of all, the GCD of 2 and 11 should be 1, and that is okay, because we know that 2 and 11 has no common factor. So now check the complete residue system modulo 11. It is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. So we have to check whether some number from this set satisfies this quadratic congruence or not. 0 surely does not satisfy. Okay. 1 is congruent to 2 modulo 11 is again not correct. So 1 is also not a solution. 2 square is 4. 4 congruent to 2 modulo 11 is again not true. So 2 is not a solution. 3. Here 9 is congruent to 2 modulo 11 is also not true, because 11 does not divide 7. So 3 is not a solution. 4. 16 is congruent to 2 modulo 11 is again not true, because 11 does not divide 16 minus 2, that is 14. So 4 is not a solution. 5. 25 congruent to 2 modulo 11 is also not true, because 11 does not divide 25 minus 2, that means 23. So this is not a solution. 6. 36 minus 2, that means 34. So 11 does not divide 34. So 6 is also not a solution. 49 minus 2 is 47. 11 does not divide 47. So 7 is also not a solution. 64, 8 square, 64. 64 minus 2 is 62. So 11 does not divide 62 also, so this is not a solution. 9, 81. 81 minus 2, 79. Once again, 79 is not divisible by 11, so it is not a solution. 10, 100 minus 2 is 98. Again, not divisible by 11, so it is also not a solution. So in this complete residue set, you have no solution of this quadratic equation. That means Q2 is a quadratic non-residue modulo 11. Now let us check what happens to 3. So now we are going to check 3. So replace this 2 by 3 here, and once again consider the same set, that is the complete residue system modulo 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. 0 does not satisfy this equation, 1 does not satisfy, 2 does not satisfy, 3 does not satisfy, 4 does not satisfy, 5. Yes, 5 satisfies this equation because 5 square congruent to 3 modulo 11 is true, because 11 divides 25 minus 3, that means 11 divides 22. So this quadratic equation has a solution in the complete residue system, and the solution is 5. So if it has a solution, that means this 3 is a quadratic residue modulo 11. So our first problem is solved, that 2 is a quadratic non-residue, whereas 3 is a quadratic residue modulo 11. So this is some basic about the quadratic non-residues or quadratic residues. But before moving ahead, there are certain definitions, there are certain small theorems, there are certain lemmas which we require to know, which we require to prove before going ahead. Let us see what these are. Actually, I am talking about the primitive roots, indices, order of element, exponent, etc. So let us see one by one what these things are, how to understand these and how to apply these for checking whether a particular number is a quadratic residue or a quadratic non-residue modulo some particular number m. So let us see one by one. Like you know that if x square congruent to a modulo m has a solution, then a is said to be a quadratic residue modulo m. Similarly, if x raised to the power n is congruent to a modulo m, obviously GCD of a and m should be 1. Then if this equation has a solution, then a is called nth power residue modulo m. Earlier you were having x square, so it was called quadratic. If it is x cube, then it will be called cubic residue. If it is x power 4, then it will be called biquadratic residue modulo m. And similarly, if it is x power n congruent to a modulo m has a solution, then a is said to be an nth power residue modulo m. So this is another definition. This is another definition, useful definition, may be used, may not be used as well, but it is must to know what it is called if x square, this power 2 is replaced by 3, 4, 5 and so on, or you can say in general n. Another thing, let GCD of a and m be h, and let h be the smallest positive integer, such that a raised to the power h is congruent to 1 modulo m. Suppose GCD of a and m is 1, and let h be the smallest positive integer such that a power h is congruent to 1 modulo m, then we say that order of the element a modulo m is h. Then we say that order of a modulo m is h. Symbolically we write order of a modulo m is h. This is just symbolically a representation of order of an element modulo m. And if order of a modulo m is h, then we also say that a belongs to exponent h modulo m. Exponent h modulo m. So, if GCD of a and m is 1 and h is the smallest positive integer satisfying a raised to the power h is congruent to 1 modulo m, then we say that order of the element a modulo m is equal to h, or you can say that a belongs to exponent h modulo m. It is another definition which will be used in this chapter of quadratic residues, and then we are going to have some important facts. Once again, if a belongs to exponent phi m modulo m, then a is called a primitive root modulo m. Then it is called a primitive root modulo m. That means what it means actually. That means phi m. We know that a raised to the power phi m is congruent to 1 modulo m. That is true because of the Fermat-Little theorem. It is true, we know that. But now phi m is the smallest integer satisfying this condition. If a is to be a primitive root modulo m, then phi m should be the smallest integer, smallest positive integer in fact, which satisfies this congruence equation. And if there is some other positive integers which is less than phi m and satisfies that a raised to power h is congruent to 1 modulo m, then a will not be a primitive root modulo m. So for a to be a primitive root modulo m, phi m should be the least positive integer satisfying a raised to the power phi m congruent to 1 modulo m. So it is another useful definition, will be used at some places in this chapter of quadratic residues. And then there is another result, you can say, a very important useful result. Let GCD of a and m be equal to 1, then a belongs to exponent h modulo m. Let GCD of a and m is 1 and a belongs to exponent h modulo m. This is given. Then a raised to the power some k may be some other number, then a raised to the power k is congruent to 1 modulo m if and only if h divides k. This is a theorem, you can say, we are going to prove regarding this exponent h modulo m, or you can say order of the element a modulo m. This is an important result. This is an important theorem which will be used, which may be asked in your examination question paper. So what we are given with? We are given with GCD of a and m is 1, and we are given that a belongs to exponent h modulo m. That means h is the smallest positive integer such that a raised to the power h is congruent to 1 modulo m. That is given to us. That is given to us. And we have to show that a power k is congruent to 1 modulo m if and only if h divides k. Since we are having here if and only if, we will have to prove theorem directly as well as the converse part of the proof. So first I will suppose this and I will prove this, and then I will suppose this and I will prove this. Since the other part is easy, so I am taking other part first. So for the proof, let h divides k. Okay, let h divides k. By the definition of divisibility, if h divides k, there exists some integer q such that k is equal to hq. Now a raised to the power k is equal to a raised to the power hq, and a raised to the power hq can be written as a raised to the power h raised to the power q, and a raised to the power h is given to me since a belongs to exponent h modulo m. So a raised to the power h is obviously congruent to 1 modulo m. So a power h is congruent to 1 and raised to the power q, that means 1 modulo m. So you have a raised to the power k is congruent to 1 modulo m. So this means that a raised to the power k is congruent to 1 modulo m. That means one side we have proved that if h divides k, then a raised to the power k is congruent to 1 modulo m. This is being proved. Now move on to the converse part. Let us see how to prove the converse of this theorem. Conversely, we are given that a raised to the power k is congruent to 1 modulo m. Conversely, let a raised to the power k is congruent to 1 modulo m. Conversely, it is given since h is the smallest positive integer such that a raised to the power h is congruent to 1 modulo m. H is the smallest positive integer satisfying this condition, and k also satisfies this condition. So that means h must be less than or equal to k, or in fact h is less than k. You can say h is less than or equal to k. So this means your h is less than or equal to k. And if h is less than or equal to k, then we can divide k by h, and dividing k by h we will get some quotient and some remainder. So let q be the quotient and r be the remainder obtained on dividing k by h. That means we are dividing k by h and we are getting quotient q and remainder r. So the condition is something like this, that you are dividing k by h and you are getting q as quotient or r as remainder. Therefore, by division algorithm, your k will be equal to h times q plus r. So therefore your k is h times q plus r, where your r is greater than or equal to 0 but is strictly less than h, because remainder always is greater than or equal to 0 and is strictly less than the number by which it is being divided. Okay, so this is given to us now. Also, we are given that a power k is congruent to 1. So substitute value of k is equal to hq plus r from here to this equation. So what you are going to get, I am going to rub this portion because I will not need this now. the last line I'm keeping it because I will need it. So I'm substituting the value of k from here to here. So what you are going to get is a raised to the power HQ plus R is congruent to 1 modulo M. And you can write it as a raised to the power h raised to the power q into a raised to the power r congruent to 1 modulo m. And we are given that a belongs to exponent h modulo m. That means a raised to the power h is already congruent to 1 modulo m. So this a power h can be replaced by 1. So what you are going to get is that 1 raised to the power q into a raised to the power r is congruent to 1 modulo m. So this means a raised to the power r is congruent to 1 modulo m. Now r is strictly less than h and h is the smallest positive integer such that a raised to the power h is congruent to 1 modulo m. So that means this is true if and only if r is equal to 0, because r to be a positive integer less than h, satisfying this condition is not possible because h is the smallest integer satisfying this condition. So r must be equal to 0. So from here we get that r must be 0. And if r is 0, you substitute it here, what you are going to get is k is equal to hq, and this directly means that h divides k. So if a raised to the power k is congruent to 1 modulo m, then h divides k. The converse part is also being proved. So this is a result, this is a theorem which will be used in several questions and theorems related to quadratic residues. So let us have some more results, some more theorems related to this. You can say order of element or you can say exponent. So A star let theorem, another theorem, let A is congruent to B modulo M and order of the element A modulo M is H, then order of the element B modulo M will also be equal to H. So what we are given that A is congruent to B modulo M and order of A modulo M is H. These two things are given to us. That means H is the smallest positive integer such that A raised to the power H is congruent to 1. So this is given that for the proof I am writing that H is the smallest positive integer such that A raised to the power H is congruent to 1 modulo M. This is given to us, and further we are given that A is congruent to B modulo M. We know that from the chapter of congruences that if A is congruent to B, then A raised to the power H is congruent to B raised to the power H modulo M. So I can raise both sides to the power H. But A raised to the power H is congruent to 1. Or you can say that we are using transitivity. B power H is congruent to A power H and A power H is congruent to 1 modulo M. So if B power H is directly congruent to 1, B raised to the power H is congruent to 1 modulo M. But it is not sufficient to say that order of B modulo M is H, because we are also to prove that H is the smallest positive integer satisfying this condition. So suppose on the contrary there is another positive integer which is less than k, which is less than h and satisfies this condition. So let if possible there exist k less than h, k belonging to the set of positive integers such that B raised to the power k is congruent to 1 modulo M. Suppose it is. Now once again multiply, we are actually to use this relation here. So b power, once again move on to this given that a is congruent to b modulo m. A is congruent to b modulo m, and once again raise both sides to the power k. A power k is congruent to b power k modulo m, and once again use transitivity. A power k is congruent to b power k and b power k is congruent to 1 modulo m both. So this means from transitivity you have a raised to the power k is congruent to 1 modulo m, where k is less than h and k belongs to the set of positive integers. And this is a contradiction because order of the element a modulo m is h. So h must be the smallest positive integer satisfying this condition, and k is less than h. So how can k satisfy this condition? That means a power k congruent to 1 modulo m is not possible. So we are arriving some contradiction. And why this contradiction? Because we have supposed that there is an integer k less than h which is positive and satisfies a b power k is congruent to 1 modulo m. So that means this is not possible. This is not possible. That means h is the smallest positive integer satisfying b raised to the power h is congruent to 1 modulo m, and this means order of the element b modulo m is also equal to h, and that is what we wanted to show. So we have shown that if a is congruent to b and order of the element a modulo m is h, then order of the element b modulo m is also equal to h. And let us have another very simple corollary of the above applications or above terms. This is, you can say, corollary, and this corollary says that order of an element a modulo m divides phi m. Note that here order of a modulo m, let order of a modulo m be h. This means h is smallest positive integer such that a raised to the power h is congruent to 1 modulo m. Also from the Fermat-Little theorem, we know that a raised to the power phi m is congruent to 1 modulo m. This result is well known to us. And just now we have shown that if a raised to the power k is congruent to 1 modulo m and h is the exponent class of a, then h divides k. So this means from these two results you can directly conclude that h divides phi m. But what is h? Here h is the order of a modulo m. So this means order of the element a modulo m divides phi m, and this is what we wanted to show. Okay, now once again I am moving on to the quadratic residues. Here I have explained a lot about the primitive roots, about the exponent, about the order of the element, and now once again we are moving back onto the quadratic residues. So here is another theorem. This equation ax square plus bx plus c congruent to 0 modulo p can be, where p is the prime, can be reduced to the form y square is congruent to d modulo p. This equation ax square plus bx plus c is congruent to 0 modulo p. It can be reduced to the form y square is congruent to d modulo p. That is our aim now. And once again it is very easy. So let us see how to arrive at the conclusion. We are given that ax square plus bx plus c is congruent to 0 modulo p. We know that if a is congruent to b, then ma is also congruent to mb. That means a congruence equation can be multiplied by a constant both sides. So I am going to multiply this congruence equation both sides by 4a. Multiplying both sides by 4a, what you are going to get? Here you will get 4a square here you will get 4ab, and here you will get 4ac is congruent to 0 modulo p. And now add 4b square both sides. So add 4b square both sides. 0 plus 4b square. Here also 4b square. 4b square or b? Sorry, b square, not 4b square, but add b square both sides. Now look at these three terms. 1, 2 and 3. What it is? 4a square x square plus 4abx plus b square. It is nothing but 2ax plus b whole square. And take this term to the right hand side, and you will get is congruent to b square minus 4ac modulo p. So take this 2ax plus b is equal to y, or you can say put this is equal to y, and this b square minus 4ac is equal to d, and you will get that this equation can be written in the form y square is congruent to d modulo p. So that means this quadratic congruence equation ax square plus bx plus c is congruent to 0 modulo p can be written in the form y square plus d. Y square is congruent to d modulo p, where what is y? Your y is 2ax plus b, and your d is nothing but b square minus 4ac. So always it can be done. So this is another useful result. We may use this result at some places when we will be doing the chapter of quadratic congruences. And now one more theorem. Let us see what the theorem says. The theorem says if the quadratic congruence x square is congruent to a modulo p is solvable. If it is solvable, that means if a is a quadratic residue modulo p, then how many solutions will be there? There will be exactly 2 solutions. Then it has exactly 2 solutions. If it is solvable, it will have exactly 2 solutions. When we are saying that exactly 2 solutions, that means exactly 2 incongruent solutions. That means there will be 2 solutions which are incongruent to each other, and if you are having any third solution, then that third solution must be congruent to at least one of these 2. This theorem says that there will be exactly 2 incongruent solutions modulo p. So let us see the proof. Let x square is congruent to a modulo p is solvable and x not be a solution. And x not be a solution. We are given that it is solvable. We are given that this quadratic congruence equation is solvable. It has a solution. So we have supposed that the solution is x naught. Now we have to show that there is another solution which is incongruent to x naught modulo p. And these 2 will be the precisely 2 solutions. And if any third solution will be there, that will be congruent to either this one or the second one. And let us see what the second one solution is. X naught is a solution. That means x naught satisfies this equation. So x naught square is congruent to a modulo p. That means p divides x naught square minus a. Now look at this. P minus x naught square congruent to a modulo p. Let us see is it true or not. If you open this square, you will get p square minus 2px naught plus x naught square is congruent to a modulo p. And we know that it is a congruence equation modulo p. So any multiple of p can be removed. This p square is a multiple of p, so can be removed. This minus 2px naught is a multiple of p, so can be removed. So what you are going to get is x naught square is congruent to a modulo p, which is already true. So that means this equation is also true. So that means p minus x naught is another solution. So we are having two solutions. One of the solutions is x naught and the other solution is p minus x naught. X naught and p minus x naught, and clearly these two solutions are incongruent, because if they are congruent, that means x naught is congruent to p minus x naught modulo p, then this will mean that 2x naught is congruent to p modulo p, and p is modulo, so multiple of p can be reduced, so it can be 0. So this means x naught is congruent to 0 modulo p, and x, you substitute this x naught is equal to 0 here, a will become 0. But a is a positive integer, because if it is a is 0, then GCD of a and p cannot be 1, and which is an essential condition for a to be a quadratic residue modulo p. So this is not possible. That means x naught and p minus x naught, they are incongruent solutions. So we have two solutions now. One is x naught and the other one is p minus x naught. And now we have to show that there is no third solution. Suppose, if possible, there is another solution x naught. Sorry, x1. If x1 is a solution, then x1 must also satisfy this equation. So that means x1 square is congruent to a modulo p. Now, x1 square is congruent to a and a is congruent to x0 square. That means x1 square is congruent to a square, x0 square modulo p by using transitivity. So this means x1 square is congruent to x0 square modulo p, and this means p divides x1 square minus x0 square. This means p divides x1 minus x0 into x1 plus x0. So this means, once again, this means here p is a prime number. P is a prime number. If p divides ab, then p either divides a or divides p. Sorry, p either divides a or divides b. So that means p divides x1 minus x0 or p divides x1 plus x0. If p divides x1 minus x0, then x1 is congruent to x0 modulo p. And if p divides x1 plus x0, then x1 is congruent to p minus x0 modulo p. So that means if you are having any other solution x1, then the solution x1 is either congruent to x0 or congruent to p minus x0 modulo p, which are already the two solutions which are incongruent to each other. So that means there is no third incongruent solution of this quadratic equation, and hence we have proved this theorem. And now let us have some applications, some basic applications of quadratic residues, how to obtain the quadratic residue of a given quadratic congruence equation. So consider this congruence equation: x square plus 3x plus 11 is congruent to 0 modulo 23. Let us see whether this equation has a solution, and if it has a solution, then what will be the other, because there are exactly two solutions. This is the quadratic congruence equation. The number of solutions will be exactly 2. Let us see whether it is solvable or not, and if it is solvable, what are the two solutions. So to solve this equation, better if you use that process, that any quadratic congruence equation of the type ax square plus bx plus c congruent to 0 modulo p can be reduced to the form y square is congruent to d modulo p. So multiply both sides by 4. So multiplying by 4, you will get 4 here, you will get 12 here, you will get 44 here. And now you can write 4x square plus 12x plus, and just take this minus 44 to the other side, modulo 23, and to make it a perfect square, you will have to add 9. So add 9 this side, add 9 here too. Still, the right hand side is negative. To make it positive, you can add multiples of the modulo number p. So add 23 once. Adding 23 once, it is still negative. So add one more 23, and now it is positive. If it is negative, you can add 23 a number of times to make it positive. The left hand side is now 2x plus 3 square is congruent to, the right hand side is now 46, this is 11, modulo 23. Now what to do? This is the perfect square. To make it a perfect square, once again do the same thing. Add 23 a number of times. So adding 23 once, you will get 23 plus 11, 34, modulo 23. But it is still not a perfect square. So add once more 23. You go on to add 23 a number of times, still you will get a perfect square here. Next time, adding 23, it will become 57, modulo 23. Then it will become 80, modulo 23. Then it will become 103, modulo 23. Then it will become 126, modulo 23. Go on adding. Next time you will get 149, modulo 23. If the calculations are okay, if there is some calculation problem, I may go the wrong way. 149 plus 23 once again. Plus 23 once again will give you 172. Still not a perfect square. Add 23 again. So it is 195. Not a perfect square once again. I think this quadratic equation has no solution. I think so, because it seems like this. Adding 23 once again, you will get 218, and then you will get 241, and then you will get 264, and I think you will get no perfect square here. That means this quadratic equation has no solution. So you can have some other example where the congruence equation may have solution. It may have solution if there is some calculation problem made by me, and I will apologize for that. If there is some calculation mistake, you can solve it at your own. Consider another equation. Suppose x square is congruent to 5 modulo 29. Let us see what the solution is. So it is 5. Add 29 once again in number of times till you get a perfect square. So 29 plus 5 is 34. Still not a perfect square. Add 29 once again. 34 plus 29 is 63. Not a perfect square once again. Add once more. So you will get 92. Again not a perfect square. Add 29 once more, and you will get 121, which is a perfect square. So x square is congruent to 11 square modulo 29, and now very clearly the two solutions are, one is x is congruent to 11 and the other is its complement, because one was x naught, the other was p minus x naught. So one is 11, other will be 29 minus 11. So it is 29 minus 11 modulo 29. So the two solutions are x is congruent to 11 and x is congruent to 18 modulo 29. So these are the two solutions in this case. So in this way you can solve quadratic congruence equations. So I'm going to end this video here. In the next video we will have more and more theorems, more and more lemmas, more and more questions on quadratic residues. Till then, thank you once again.